listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
Today is a Hymn Sing with Sarah Day. Oh. I just got a new hymnal for my birthday, so this was very exciting. I got Walther's hymnal, inspired by the last episode on Emilie, Juliane, and then I told my mom, I was like, I need this hymnal for my birthday. So I got it.
Through.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
So that hymnal doesn't actually come up today. That was just a fun fact. Mm-hmm. Today is the long-awaited and promised baptism hymn episode because I don't know how I went this long without doing...
Only took you 4 years.
They're only like really important. So this is also very exciting though, because my newest goddaughter was just born this week. And so baptism is on my brain because she's going to be baptized really, by the time this airs, she'll be baptized. So I'm like thinking baptism and also our recent party planning committee baptism birthday party. I'm like, ooh, should I make choco flan for her baptism birthday party?
Do it and have it at the aquarium.
Yes. So this is very exciting. And as I said in I think, was that Emilie, Juliane? I don't remember. One of those podcasts I talk about baptism hymns. We have a lot of baptism hymns in Lutheran Service Book, which is amazing. There are a lot of options. And so I did a poll in our Facebook group, as usual. I'm going to give you the rundown first before we start getting into anything else. So we've got Lutheran Service Book 590, baptized into your name most holy, 4% of votes. 591, this is the Spirit's entry now, 0%. There are several that have 0% of the vote.
There's just so many to choose from.
And I think people really have favorites for this, of like ones that their church does all the time.
Or they're like the greatest hits that churches will do.
Yeah. 592, Dearest Jesus, we are here, 8%. I think that one ended up in the top, 3 or 4. 593, See This Wonder in the Making, which is a Yaroslav Vaida hymn. Great one. That's 6% of the vote. God's Own Child, I Gladly Say It, very unsurprisingly outranked all of them by a ton at 29%.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Blew everything out of the water. I was expecting that to happen, though, so this is not surprising. Oh, Blessed Spring, 595, that got 0 votes. 596, All Christians Who Have Been Baptized, which is a Paul Gerhardt hymn, 2%. 597, Water, Blood, and Spirit Crying, which is a Starkey and Blursch collaboration. Very good hymn. Only 3% of the vote. Once in the Blessed Baptismal Waters, that one is Emilie, Juliane von Schwarzburg-Rudolstadt. That got 1%. 599, Oh Gracious Lord, With Love Draw Near, which is also Starkey. That is 1%. 600, Mark How the Lamb of God, Self-Offering. That's a Louis Bourgeois tune. And also very popular for Baptism of Jesus. Also 1% of the vote. All Who Believe and Are Baptized, Great Thomas Kingo classic, 2% of the vote. The Gifts Christ Freely Gives, 602, also got 1% of the vote. We Know That Christ is Raised, 603, 1% of the vote. 604, I bind unto myself this day, St. Patrick's breastplate, 2% of the vote. And then this is the surprising one, 605, Father Welcomes, second place at 10% of the vote.
That's a good one.
I'm not surprised.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I may actually be in the minority on this. I think I've only sung this one like once, twice.
Yeah, we do this almost every single baptism.
My left hand is currently trying to play the bass line.
So I think I'm actually in a minority group on this one then.
Rare.
Because I know. And honestly, I don't really like that hymn.
I'm not surprised. Wow. I don't know why, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And it might just be because I just don't. I've rarely sung it. I don't know.
I didn't like it until all my kids started singing it and loving it. And now I just love it for their sake, because I just remember their little selves, standing up and singing it full voice. And it really, it changed my mind about the hymn.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. It's a good one for kids to sing too. Like it's not super complicated, but it's still really good. Yeah. Yep. So our top 3 are God's Own Child, I Gladly Say It, Father Welcomes, Dearest Jesus, We Are Here, and then in 4th place, Baptized into Your Name Most Holy. So not other than Father Welcomes, which was surprising to only me, apparently. The rest of it, not super surprising. So I did leave this poll open for people to add other ones because I didn't really care about Maximum Science this time. And also people have a lot of opinions about baptism hymns, which is cool. I was baptized from Little Ones Sing Praise. I don't know that one, but apparently popular. I Am Jesus, Little Lamb. This makes sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah. To Jordan Came the Christ our Lord, which is technically baptism. That's Epiphany.
Oh, it's Epiphany.
It's in the Epiphany section of the hymnal.
Yeah.
It was, I think, in the baptism section in LW. I have that later in my notes. So it makes sense. But it's Jesus' baptism, so, it works.
Yeah. No, I was thinking of On Jordan's Banks, the Baptist cry.
Yes.
Very different.
Jordan and baptism, but no, different. Baptist, not baptism.
Close.
Yeah.
Wash, O God, our sons and daughters. Children of the Heavenly Father. That one makes some sense too. Morning Cry. Do you guys know this one?
Yes, I do actually. It's been years since I've heard it. I was there to hear your morning cry, etc.
Is that in the green hymnal? Is that in the green?
It may
LBW?
be.
Or a different green hymnal?
It's the hymnal that my grandparents' church used. Because they're I don't know which hymnal it is, but it's green, and I can picture the logo. I can't picture the name of it.
Is it a logo? Is it a square with a cross?
Like a book sort of thing. Like there's like a book.
Yeah, I think that's Lutheran Book of Worship.
Okay.
The twin to LW.
Probably. Anyway, it might be in that one.
Maybe.
All I know is we sang it at their church, I remember.
Okay.
Which is why I wonder if it's in that one.
It is in Evangelical Lutheran Worship and With One Voice. That shows up in some voice. So it may be in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have never heard of that one, but that one was a popular one.
Uh-huh.
People who loved it and also hate it.
It's a very yes. It's very sentiment. Like it's got a lot of emotional.
Yeah, it makes me cry.
Oh,
yeah.
And I've sung it, but it's not one of my absolute favorites.
It feels like a very 70s or 80s hymn.
Yes, that too.
But it's kind of cool because it actually covers the whole lifespan. So that's kind of cool. Like it brings you from your born cry and then actually all the way up until when you die. And then you are born again, resurrected. And so that's kind of cool.
It looks like it was written in the 80s.
1985.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Sounds about right.
Fair enough.
So
what else? Welcome to the family from the other songbook, which we do own a copy of that book. That is on our shelf.
Now that one I've never heard.
I haven't either. The Savior Kindly Calls from TLH. Baptized in Water. Don't know what that one is either, but somebody else loves it, which is great. Go My Children with My Blessing. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And Praise the One Who Breaks the Darkness, 849. I like that hymn. I didn't think about that one for baptism, but
I wouldn't. But it works.
It works. So there's a lot of options in LSB, and I looked in TLH and LW just to get a feel. And there's a surprisingly small, maybe not surprising, there's a small number of hymns in TLH and LW for baptism.
Interesting.
Which I found interesting, yes. There's only 6 in TLH, and Baptized into Thy Name Most Holy, Dearest Jesus, We Are Here, and He That Believes and Are Baptized. Those are the 3 in TLH that have carried through all of our hymnals to LSB. So that explains why those are popular.
You know what, though? It doesn't, actually thinking about our practical forebears, it makes sense because you only use the baptism hymns unless you're doing baptismal remembrance, right?
Yeah.
If you're actually baptizing someone, you will use maybe one hymn. It's not like the whole service is baptism hymns. You don't need 6 full baptism hymns. So if you just have a few that you can pull in, and back when TLH was published, a lot of babies were still baptized at home.
That's
not during the church service. So they had what they needed. They got some good ones.
That's true. The other thing is that a lot of the ones that we have in LSB didn't even exist in 1940. There's a solidly large number of LSB baptism hymns that are very recent. So they just didn't have the ones that we have now. So a lot of these are much more recent. And then there's also 6 in Lutheran worship, but not the same 6. Those 3 that were in TLH are there. And then To Jordan Came the Christ Our Lord is in baptism instead of Epiphany in LW. And then 2 other ones that I don't know. So, and then those same 3 from TLH are also in LSB. And then, of course, I had to check my favorite hymnal supplement 69.
Favorite.
I'm telling you, man, that was a gem when I found that one. I love so many hymns in that little book. It's great. There are two in that one, neither of which we have in LSB. I've never heard of either of them, but one of them was written by John Mason Neal, who is one of our favorite dudes on this podcast, and not translated. He actually wrote this.
Wow.
I know. I didn't really know. I figured he wrote stuff, but everything we've talked about, he's just translated from Latin, right? So it's kind of cool, though. I like it. With Christ we share a mystic grave, with Christ we buried lie, but not within the darksome cave of by mournful Calvary. I do not like his rhyming, though.
Yeah.
Calvary and lie.
That was a Victorian thing. Because they were reading poems that had been written before the Great Vowel Shift. They thought this was how poetry worked, and so they tried to make themselves sound archaic by these forced slant rhymes, and they're awful.
Yeah, I don't like them. But I like the sentiment of the hymn. The pure and bright baptismal flood entombs our nature stain. New creatures from the cleansing wave. With Christ we rise again. Thrice blessed if through this world of sin and lust and selfish care, our resurrection robe of white and undefiled we wear. Thrice blessed if through the gates of death, glorious at last and free, we to our joyful rising past, O risen Lord, with thee. And now to thy thrice holy name, to God whom we adore, to Father, Son, and Spirit, blessed be glory evermore. Amen.
That's really nice.
I like that one. Yeah. Little suspicious rhyming, but that's okay. And then
Sauce.
and then I also checked in Supplement 98 because why not? And so in that one, see this wonder in the making, God's own child, I gladly say it, and we know that Christ is raised. We're all new in that hymnal, and all three of those we have in LSB, plus two others that we don't have, and I don't know them, so I didn't include them. But I really love We Know That Christ is Raised. It's a really good one to belt out. I don't know if it's a super popular one. It's still fairly new, so I don't know if a ton of people know it. I really like that one, though.
Can I just say the fact that See This Wonder in the Making and God's Own Child, I Gladly Say It, made their LCMS debut in 1998 and are now so incredibly popular.
Yeah.
These are really show-stopping hymns because normally we don't like anything that's like not 100
Right.
Well, how did this
years
one
old.
stay a secret for so long?
God's Own Child?
Yeah.
It was written a really long time ago and just nobody had translated it. So Robert Velker translated it in like 1991,
So this is the
I
first
think.
time it was translated?
I think so, at least into English, or at least into good English. I mean, it doesn't really show up
Yeah. Okay.
before then. So, yeah.
Thank you, Robert Velker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people like it. Not everyone.
Was the tune written for it?
I don't.
Sorry, I'm getting
No,
you
you're
off
fine.
throwing you off your script.
You're fine. It's good.
I mean, it looks like it was the composer and the author look like they lived at the same time. Bachofen.
I think it was the original tune to the hymn. I don't know if it was actually written for it.
Oh, okay.
But I'm pretty sure it was that was the tune that they used.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I am not going to run through all of these because there's a lot, and we've already covered a lot of like Starkey and Gerhardt and Vida. Like we've already talked about those people in other podcasts. We've already talked about Once in the Blessed Baptismal Waters in the previous Emilie Juliane of Schwarzburg-Rudolstadt. That one,
You're getting real good at saying that.
That one we covered in her Storytime episode. And then God's Own Child, I Gladly Say It. We covered that one extensively in the Baptism Party Planning Committee episode that we did several weeks ago also. So we can put those two links in the show notes. So if you really want to listen to anything about those hymns, you can listen to those there, and I won't cover them today. God's Own Child is definitely a fan favorite. I was interested to see that there is I don't know if it's large, but there is a contingent of people who really don't like this hymn. And I appreciate that they commented on the poll and were like, I don't know why people love it. I just don't. It's interesting to me to see the differences in people's appreciation of hymns and what they like and what they don't like. And I don't know. I just think it's very interesting, and it's okay to like not like hymns because there's some hymns that I don't like either. Like Father Welcomes. I just find this so surprising, but I guess it makes sense that people like this hymn. I find it very sing-songy and like 70s, and it just doesn't really fit my vibe of what I like about hymns. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just like not really my thing, and that's okay. But a lot of you guys like it, and all three of you know it, right? So this was written text and tune by Robin Mann, who was born in 1949. So if you're listening, Robin Mann, I'm really sorry. I don't like your hymn.
No offense.
He wrote it in According to Hymnary, he's still alive. I don't know if that's accurate, but he wrote it in 1973 for the birth of his daughter, Kristen, to be sung at her baptism, which is a really cute story.
That is cool.
Actually.
Yeah.
That is cool.
That makes me like it a little bit more, to be honest. It was published in 1974 in the Songs for the People of God in Adelaide, Australia. So this is an Australian hymn. The text of this is really beautifully simple, which makes it really nice for baptisms and for kids to sing. It's not a super complicated hymn, which does make it nice for like memorization and singing as kids get older and stuff. It also kind of connects this like the baptism to funeral connection, because father is welcoming you into his family in baptism, but also into heaven when you die. So there's a lot of connections you can make and a lot of theological stuff. So I get why people like it. That's cool. Maybe I'll grow to love it now that I know everyone else loves it too.
I had no idea that it was an Australian song, but it totally makes sense. Sort of fits the relaxed, kind of cultural vibe down there. And it fits. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, that is interesting when you know where hymns come from. Things make more sense. So then one of my favorites in this section, and I probably don't have just one, but one of them is 603, We Know That Christ is Raised. I think the combination of the text and the tune are like a really good one for me to belt, and maybe it's just in my range. And that Alleluia is just like super fun to sing. So I just love singing this one partially. But also, this is a favorite Easter hymn for a lot of people. I think we sang it a lot during this Easter season, or I just imagined it because I love it. I don't know. This is also one of my favorite texts from Scripture. Romans 6, verse 9, we know that Christ being raised from the dead will never die again. Death no longer has dominion over him. I love that verse, and that is basically the entire hymn. This was written by John B. Geyer, who was born in 1932 and just recently died in 2020. So another really recent hymn writer. He wrote this hymn in 1967 when he was tutoring at Cheshunt College in Cambridge. And so there was a lot, this is really interesting about this hymn. There was a lot of research being done like really close to Cambridge, or maybe in Cambridge, somewhere in a very close vicinity of creating babies in test tubes. This was happening at this time. So he wrote this hymn in that context of a confession of Christian doctrine of baptism and like how that relates to what they were doing with this research. Super interesting. And you don't really see that in the text that we have, because it's been altered. The original text that relates to that has been altered in our hymnal. So you wouldn't know that just by reading the text in the hymnal. But in the original text, it says in stanza 2, this union brings to being one new cell was changed to reborn we share with him in Easter life. Not even the same sentiment, but that was the original. And then a living and organic part of Christ is now as living members of a living Christ. So that makes sense. And then in stanza 3, the original text was, the Spirit's fission shakes the church of God. And that's now the Spirit's power shakes the church of God. So,
you know what? I'm okay with that. I mean, this is like the ultimate atomic age hymn, isn't it?
Yeah.
True.
But knowing how, speaking of a hymn I don't really care for, Earth and All Stars, loud boiling test tubes has not aged well. And I feel like the Spirit's vision might not have aged as well. Maybe it's aged well for you. It hasn't for me.
So much. It's so nostalgic.
Classrooms and labs.
Yes.
I mean, it's a fine hymn. I just always end up laughing when I sing it. Maybe that's what it's meant to be.
Steel mills and wood and factory workers. I'm so tired right now.
Cream puff hangover.
Although I do feel like I could make some new verses to Earth and All Stars to bring it up to the 21st century.
Yes.
Something about AI.
Challenge alert.
Yeah.
Ooh, we should do that as a hymn sing episode
that
later.
could be fun.
Challenge in the
Think
lounge.
about that.
Anyway,
Tweets and AI, rampant inflation.
so good.
Sing to the Lord a new song.
Yeah, let's just move on, shall we?
I love this so much. Okay, so
Okay, sorry. I'm writing it in my head now.
so good. So it turns out that I like the text we have in LSB. Probably wouldn't have liked the original text if the original text made it in the hymnal. So
Agreed.
So there we go. I do find it very interesting that, like, we talked in the Emilie Juliane podcast too about like hymns that relate to contemporary matters in everyday life. And so it's just cool to think that people write hymns for things that are happening in their immediate area and like confessing Christ in the midst of all this stuff. So what do we have today going? Lots of stuff happening today. Like we can be confessing Christ in hymnody in the midst of all this stuff that's going on. AI and Twitter. Anyway. So I feel like I also need to talk about the three that have actually stood the test of time through all of our hymnals, because those are very important hymns for our baptismal time and still show up for a lot of people, still very important for a lot of people. So those are Baptized into Your Name Most Holy, which is LSB 590, Dearest Jesus, We Are Here, LSB 592, and All Who Believe and Are Baptized, LSB 601, and I constantly get this one mixed up with All Christians Who Have Been Baptized because the titles are super similar.
Are they different?
They are very different.
All right, I mix them up too, apparently.
I mix them up all the time.
I not only mix them up, I conflate them.
Yes, because I think you could sing them to the same tune. But they're not the same. They're not the same. All Christians Who Have Been Baptized is 2 stanzas by Thomas Kingo, and All Christians Who Have Been Baptized are like 8 stanzas or 10 or something by Paul Gerhardt. So very different hymns.
Okay.
So Baptized into Your Name Most Holy was written by Johann Rambach, who lived 1693 to 1735. This was translated by Catherine Winkworth. Not surprising. It's the right time period for her to be doing all this. Rambach was a professor at Halle, which was the center of German pietism. The original hymn was much more about living a baptized life, so like the sanctified life idea, than the actual sacrament action of baptism. And the current hymn still has a little bit of that. It's also much shortened, so they kind of cut out some of that stuff. It was first published in 1734 in the Erbauliches Handbüchlein für Kinder, or Edifying Little Book for Children. It's a cute title. It continued to be really popular for confirmation in German and English because Catherine translated it in 1858. So it was originally 7 stanzas, and then in 1863, Catherine translated 6 of them. She wanted this. I find this really funny. She wanted to shorten lengthy German hymns to match, quote, the English allowance of 4 verses only.
Oh,
so this has been going on for at least 150 years. German hymns are too long.
4 is the number you shall sing.
In the verses that she chose to cut.
Oh,
I mean, sometimes we do that.
sometimes we do that. Yeah, but it's 4 stanzas now, right? Yeah. So it was 6 in 1863, and then all 6 of them are in TLH, and then it was cut down to 4 in LSB. And the ones that were omitted are the ones that are more geared toward confirmation. So it actually makes sense if you're using it for a baptism hymn that you wouldn't sing the ones for confirmation. So I love this hymn. It's a great one. Highly recommend. 5 stars. And then Dearest Jesus, We Are Here was written by Benjamin Schmolk. He has a fun name. Who lived 1672 to 1737, so about the same time period.
He has got 7 consonants in his last name and only 1 vowel.
I know,
That's amazing.
Schmolk. Schmolk.
Impressive.
that is.
It's a fun name. He was a really incredible poet. He wrote around 900 hymns during his life. Like, super prolific.
Hymn nerd, the OG.
Yes. And I will tell you a little bit more about his life in just a minute, because he does have a somewhat interesting story. Catherine Winkworth also translated this hymn, surprise, surprise, for Lyrica Germanica in 1858 and Chorale Book for England in 1863. So these were the same 2 books as Baptized into Your Name Most Holy. So these 2 hymns have kind of grown up together in our hymnody history. The text we have has been modified quite a bit. Nothing really like heretical, mostly for clarity and aligning with Lutheran theology, but like nothing that would be like horribly terrible. So Benjamin Schmolk is interesting. He was a pastor and hymn writer who served in Silesia after the 30 Years' War. So at this time, most of Silesia was Roman Catholic. And that affected his ability to like be a Lutheran pastor quite a bit. So Lutherans were left to be like, quote, re-Catholicized after the war in Silesia, or they had like super restricted properties and resources. So there's a lot of like persecution against them at this time. He was born on December 21st, 1672. He was a Lutheran pastor's kid. His dad served in Brauchisdorf, Silesia, which is now Krosniec, Poland, which is right outside Lubin. It's in western Poland, like really close to the border. And his dad also wanted him to be a Lutheran pastor. So he was like, he grew up in this expectation of becoming a Lutheran pastor, which apparently he wanted to do, or at least he ended up doing. So he went to the gymnasium in Lauben, which is now Lublin, Poland, and then the University of Leipzig, where he graduated in 1679. And his stipend to Leipzig was paid for by people in his dad's parish who were really impressed by a sermon he preached in 1693, which was before he even went to the university. So he was very
you said
talented.
1679. Did you mean 1697?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
97.
I'm sorry. You were on a roll, but you were like, he preached this before he went to college. Wait.
Nope. Graduated in 1697. So yes, This was, yes. He was preaching apparently before he went to the university, and the people in his dad's church were very impressed with how talented he was. So
That wouldn't fly these days.
no, it would not. This is before our seminary system. While he was in Leipzig, he studied with really fantastic Lutheran theologians like Johannes Solarius. He wrote a lot of poetry to support himself for all of the like wealthy residents there, and he earned poet laureate in 1697. So he was very good and wrote a ton of stuff. After he was in Leipzig, he went back to be an assistant in his dad's parish in Schweidnitz, now Świdnica, Poland, where he was called to be the deacon of the Friedenkirche after his ordination in 1701. And then he married Anna Rosina in 1702. Cute. And then, so I love learning about who guys, whatever. When with the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, so this is after the war, Schweidnitz was Roman Catholic, right? So the church where he served as a Lutheran pastor was this very simple building outside of the city walls, no tower, no bells, like nothing fancy. And it was the only church allowed in this area. So it was him and two other clergy members providing pastoral care to 14,000 parishioners in 36 villages.
Wow.
Yo.
That's crazy.
How did he find time to write poetry?
I have no idea.
Set apart to
Wow.
Right?
serve. Get on it.
He probably wrote it while he was on his horse,
In his
I
head.
suppose.
traveling between villages.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a lot. That's a lot.
That's how he passed his time while he traveled.
Yeah.
Was writing hymns.
There you go. So then finally in 1707, so this is for a very long time, they were allowed more clergy and 6 more Gnadenkirche, or grace churches in Silesia because of the good graces of Emperor Joseph I, who was Roman Catholic at the time. But he was like, you can have more churches, guys, but
What
only
a
6.
sweet guy.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
So Schmuck, Benjamin Schmuck, was appointed archdeacon in Schweidnitz in 1708, and then he was pastor in 1712, and then senior pastor and town school inspector in 1714. And then in 1730, he suffered a stroke, unfortunately, and then had 2 more after preaching for the last time in 1735. So at that point, he was completely blind, unable to preach, still managed to hear confessions for this parish because he'd been there like his entire life. Like he knew these people really well. Mm-hmm. And then he spent all of his remaining time there until he died February 12th, 1737. So a lot of his fellow Silesian pastors really spoke out harshly against pietism during this time. I feel like there was a lot of that going on during this time of Lutheranism and Christianity, but he was a lot more non-confrontational, like my kind of guy. He just kind of like did his own thing, very pastoral and gentle, and like didn't pick fights with people, but really firmly rooted in pure Orthodox Lutheran doctrine. And so he's compared to Paul Gerhardt and Johann Rist and Martin Opitz with how talented of a hymn writer he was during this time. And he was a bit of a quantity over quality kind of guy. Apparently,
900 hymns. Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
He apparently admitted this. He's like, yeah, I know some of them aren't great, but whatever, like they're there.
Well, I'm the same way with selfies. Take 100 selfies and maybe one of them will be worth sharing.
That's true. I have a lot of pictures on my camera.
So maybe that was just how he did hymns. Like, I'll just write all the hymns and maybe one or two of them will be like worth passing on to posterity.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Like,
yeah.
Exactly. Between 1704 and 1737, so that's what, 33 years? Is that my math? In 16 collections, he wrote like 1,200 texts. Woo! Of which 110 of them were sung to one tune. Wir nur den lieben Gott, which is the tune for If Thou But Trust in God to Guide Thee. Which
so he basically had the same tune stuck in his head for 30 years.
Basically, yes.
Wow.
Couldn't he just like make a song with what, 500 verses?
He could.
It's all the same tune.
He could. He wrote a lot of stuff. A lot of them were very good, though. So we have 2 of all of his hymns in Lutheran Service Book. Dearest Jesus, We Are Here, and also LSB 901, Open Now Thy Gates of Beauty. So that's the legacy we have from him in our hymnal. So that's Benjamin Schmuck. And then the third one of these like long-standing hymns, All Who Believe and Are Baptized, written by Thomas Kingo. We've talked about him before. He was also very prolific, super great hymn writer of his time. He lived 1634 to 1703. So all, again, similar time period, slightly earlier. And we've talked about him before. Fabulous writer. So this is funny. This part in the Hymnal Companion. I didn't give you my plug for the Hymnal Companion. Go buy a Hymnal Companion from Concordia Publishing House. This is really funny in there. Quote, a rare irony, the textual origin of this hymn is more firmly established than that of the biblical passage on which it is based. While Mark 16:16, whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned, and the so-called long ending of Mark do not appear in some of the earliest manuscripts of the gospel, the source of this hymn is clear. Thomas Kingo published it in his proposed Danish hymnal of 1689, and it became one of 85 hymns by Kingo to be included when a hymnal was ultimately adopted in 1699. So there you go. We know where this hymn comes from. And it's a classic. It's super clear about our doctrine of baptism, what we believe baptism does. There is no uncertainty in our baptisms or in this hymn at all. And also it's only 2 stanzas. So like there's no complaints about it being too long. It's just a great one. And it's fun to sing. This hymn first appeared, I think from what I can tell, in 1910 and 1913 Lutheran hymnary. So this goes way back in our Lutheran hymnals. Great one. And like we said, all Christians who have been baptized, not the same hymn.
I know that now.
When I was writing this, I was like, wait, didn't I already write about this hymn? Oh no, it's different. Never mind. That one is very long, written by Paul Gerhardt. I will say one thing about it. It's kind of the baptism sister hymn to LSB 555, Salvation Unto Us Has Come. They're both the same tune. So they're like sibling hymns, and they're both really great and very long, and I don't even care because you should just sing them. That's all I have to say. And that's it. That's all I got. What? I kept it short and sweet, guys, because I want to know what you guys like. Do you have favorite baptism hymns? It can be one that I didn't talk about too, because I did not cover a lot of them on purpose.
I am a big fan of God's Own Child. I gladly say it. I do understand those who feel it is challenging. I wish that my church would embrace it more than it does. But honestly, I get to sing it at work. For a while there at work, we were singing it a lot.
Yeah.
Which was fine. And that's how I really came to know and appreciate it was the repetition, because it isn't an intuitive tune. There is a lot happening in that tune, and you have to keep up with it.
Yes.
So I
especially
do
if
get
they're playing it really fast.
Yeah. The one that I do enjoy, although honestly, I feel like even though it's in the baptism section, it never fits the feeling of a baptism, is the water, blood, and spirit cry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
love it. But like the tune is sort of ominous and like the words
crying.
We've got graves and burying and there's
in a watery grave.
Sheathed.
But you know what? You know what's really interesting? Like, and my husband talks about this sometimes when you think about baptism. Like, it is a violent
It is. Exactly. No, it like to an
literally
extent it
casting
does,
demons out.
and yet it doesn't fit the vibe.
You're drowning a dude
The Sunday morning when it happens. But you're right. There is an element that does align there. But that's, I think, why we don't sing it when the adorable little baby is getting ready to, they're bringing him up to the font and we're like,
Die, old Adam!
Around us death is seething, his two-edged sword unsheathing. We don't sing that. Because it doesn't fit the vibe.
Cognitive dissonance.
But I do love it. I like the dramatic tune. I like the words. And I wish we sang it more because it's a good one.
I would be very happy to see it in a different section of the hymnal. I love that hymn. I have a personal connection to it in that when I was in college, I got to sing with Jeff Blurch as my choir director, and I still think fondly about that. And so every time I see his name in the hymnal, it makes me smile. And it's a wonderful hymn, so powerful, so evocative. I feel like it would be fantastic for like an adult baptism.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel necessarily, it lacks some sweetness. But I think if it were not in the baptism section, it would get more play. And that would be a good thing because it is a fantastic hymn.
It is.
It is.
Okay, so obviously I like that one. A lot of the hymns, I don't necessarily look at them and think, oh, I love that for its own sake. They're good hymns, but I love it because of the memories, like Father Welcomes. A friend of mine, a dear older friend of mine, often sang See This Wonder in the Making for baptisms at the church where Ken served for a number of years. She sang it as a solo. She sang it beautifully. She sang it once for her own grandson that I got to witness. And so, it's got this special place in my heart for that. I used to sing I Am Jesus' Little Lamb to my kids, when they were fussy before, and wouldn't go to sleep. And so that one feels just really close and personal to me. But there are just so many good ones. There really are.
It's true. I don't even have a favorite.
I think Rachel, with the nostalgia factor that you talked about, I think out of all of the baptismal life hymns, I think probably Father Welcomes is my favorite. It's one I'm most familiar with. I will say, God's Own Child, I gladly say it. I had not heard that hymn until I met Sarah Golseth. Became friends with her. I was like, what is this?
You're welcome.
I do like it, but I had never heard it before I was.
But it makes sense now, knowing
35.
that it's such a recent hit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like new.
Yeah.
True. Also, Flood by Jars of Clay. Just kidding.
Oh, I would like to hear that one sometime. Not sure what Doctrinal Review would say.
No. No.
Also not sure it would work with an organ.
True. Update with suggestions.
On that note,
Past.
ladies, we want to know what your favorite baptism hymns are, or hymns. The poll is still up in the Facebook group if you want to go comment on that some more, or if you want to just comment on the post for this podcast in our Facebook group or on our Instagram page, you can do that as well. If you want to add some more hymns or other ways that you celebrate baptisms with other songs, that would be cool too. Join us in our Facebook group, the Lutheran Ladies Lounge. Join us also on our Instagram page. Follow us there at Lutheran Ladies Lounge. There is extra content that goes on Instagram throughout the week that may or may not go in our Facebook group because the Facebook group takes care of itself these days. There's so much stuff happening
Good on
there.
ya.
Yeah. You can also join our e-newsletter in the show notes for this episode, or send us an email, lutheranladies@kfuo.org, and we'll get you signed up for that e-newsletter. Find all of our podcasts at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on the KFUO radio app, or on your favorite podcasting app. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Jesus' little lamb.
And I am baptized into Christ.
I love it.
I don't know why I did that demon voice, but I just felt like it was the appropriate thing
Simul justus et peccator.
Amen.
Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a review for us too. If you love the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast, consider financially supporting our producer, KFUO Radio, so we can keep doing what we do. Find out how at kfuo.org/give.